Hello, and welcome to a very new and very interesting topic, type composition, that is typography. I am Shelly Seni, and our subject expert is Mr. Ashish Garg, who is a professional and has been teaching at Maya Academy of Advanced Cinematics from last 5 years. Today, we are going to discuss about type composition. We will be covering 3 type compositions, which are manual, mechanical, and Lino. Friends, I was always amazed to see alphabets, that how it was invented and how there are so many different and innovative designs. No doubt, these typographs attracted almost every individual for a while. So today, we are going to discuss about the type composition in this episode. Let's discuss about the typography, then we will discuss about the type compositions, which are manual, mechanical, and Lino. Typography. Typography is about the design of text, which covers a very wide variety of things like books, posters, and websites are all textual. Typography goes beyond the letters on screen or paper. It is also concerned with the space around the text, the way it sits on the page or screen, and the size and proportions of those mediums. In this episode, we would be learning about the basics, invention, and some types of typography. You will learn how to use type intelligently and to set text so that it works for you. The typographer's job is to make things clear and to make things work, to make sure that the text is legible and the underlying structures in the author's manuscript, such as headings, chapters, and sections, are accurately reflected in the final work. History of typography. The letter forms we use today were not always as we see them now. Over the past 5,000 years, they evolved, linked to the rise and fall of civilizations, different cultures adding their own distinct imprint on the symbols of language. Type is one of the document designer's most important tools. Type is everywhere, and most of us take it for granted. Yet, paradoxically, successful type design is one that does not distract the reader. It is the raison d'etre of type designers that type should work to make it easier for the reader to access information, as opposed to distracting them with the design of the typeface. Without going in too much details in the history of type, let's talk about type's basics. Type basics. First, some definitions of terms. A typeface is a set of characters drawn from the same design. Times and Arial are typefaces. Strictly speaking, Times Regular and Times Bold are different typefaces, but they are part of the same typeface family. The term font is often used interchangeably with typeface, but it shouldn't really be. A font is a software implementation of typeface. It is a collection of every character available in that typeface. Although everyone has something called Times installed on their computer, the implementations differ. Suppose if you're on a PC Windows, you have got a different piece of code from the Times on a Mac Apple. In metal typesetting, the way most printing happened until the 1960s, a character was called a printing type and was a piece of metal with a reversed image of the character in relief on its face. The character was cast on the body of the type, and the size of the type referred to the size of metal body of the type, not the size of the character. This way of thinking about types has persisted into digital types, and although a type's body has no real equivalent on screen, digital types is still sized according to its notional body. Now, let's discuss about the compositions. Manual composition. In the letterpress era, movable types was composed by hand for each page. At that time, cast metal swords were composite into words and lines of text and tightly bound together to make up a page image. And that is called by the name of a form. With all letter faces exactly the same height to form an even surface of type. The form was mounted in a press, inked, and an impression made on paper. Sort. In typesetting, by hand compositing or manual compositing, a sort is a piece of type representing a particular letter or symbol. Cast form a matrix mold and assembled with other sorts bearing additional letters into lines of type to make up a form from which a page is printed. The image you see is the example of cast metal sorts. Copies of forms were cast when anticipating subsequent printings of a text, freeing the costly type for other work. In this process, called stereotyping, the entire form is pressed into a fine matrix such as plaster of Paris or papier-mâché, called flong, to create a positive, from which the stereotype form was cast of type metal. Stereotyping. A stereotype is a popular belief about specific social groups or types of individuals. The concepts of stereotype and prejudice are often confused with many other different meanings. Stereotypes are standardized and simplified conceptions of group based on some prior assumptions. Hand composing was rendered commercially obsolete by continuous casting or hot metal typesetting machines, such as the Lino type machine and monotype at the end of 19th century. We will be learning about linotype in our next episode, which is the part of same module. The linotype, invented by Ottmar Mergenthaler, enabled one machine operator to do the work of 10 hand compositor by automating the selection, use and replacement of sorts with a keyboard as input. Later advances, such as the typewriter and computer, would push the state of the art even further ahead. Still, hand composition and letterpress printing did not fall completely out of use. And since the introduction of digital typesetting, it has seen a revival as an artisanal pursuit. However, it is a very small niche within the larger typesetting market. Mechanical composition. The private press movement did much to raise the standards of ordinary trade book. Small, independent publishers who wished to make a mark not only through the distinction of their titles, but also through the distinctiveness of their house styles acted as a bridge between the deluxe bibliophilic editions and ordinary books. Companies such as those of John Lane and Elkin Matthews, who published Oscar Wilde and the periodical The Yellow Book, J.M. Dent, who commissioned Aubrey Beardsley to illustrate Malory, and who used Campscott-inspired end papers for his Everyman's Library, Stone and Kimball, 100 of 12,420 words. Mechanical composition is the composition which is done mechanically. Almost every one of us has been experienced the mechanical composition and have worked on it, and some of us are still working on it, and that we did or are doing on a typewriter. A typewriter is a mechanical or electromechanical device with the keys that, when pressed, causes the characters to be printed on the medium, usually paper. Typically, one character is printed per key press, and the machine prints the character by making ink impressions on the type elements similar to the pieces of cast metal type called sorts, used in movable type letterpress printing. From their invention in 1870 through much of the 20th century, typewriters were indispensable tools for recording the written words, widely used by professional writers and in offices for decades. By the end of 1980s, Word processors and personal computers largely displaced typewriters in the settings, where they previously had been ubiquitous in the Western world. Notable typewriter manufacturer companies have included E. Remington and Sons, IBM, Imperial Typewriters, Oliver Typewriter Company, Olivetti, Royal Typewriter Company, Smith Corona, and Underwood Typewriter Company. Early innovations. The typewriter was made by Christopher Latham Scholes. Although many modern typewriters have one of several similar designs, their invention was incremental, provided by numerous inventors working independently or in competition with each other over a series of decades. As with the automobile, telephone, and telegraph, a number of people contributed insights and inventions that eventually resulted in even more commercially successful instruments. In fact, historians have estimated that some form of typewriters was invented 52 times as thinkers tried to come up with a workable design. Some more invention of typewriters in different countries. In Britain, Henry Mill obtained a patent in 1714 for a machine that from the patent appears to have been similar to a typewriter. The patent shows that this machine was actually created. Henry hath, by his great study and pains and expense, invented and brought to perfection an artificial machine or method for impressing or transcribing of letters, one after another as in writing, whereby all writing whatsoever may be engrossed in paper or parchment so neat and exact as not to be distinguished from print, that the said machine or methods may be of great use in settlements and public records, the impression being deeper and more lasting than any other writing, and not be erased or counterfeited without manifest discovery. Italian Pellegrino Turri invented a typewriter in 1808. He also invented carbon paper to provide the ink for his machine. Many early machines, including Turris, were developed to enable the blind to write. By the mid-19th century, the increasing pace of business communication had created a need for mechanization of writing process. Stenographers and telegraphers could take down information at rates up to 130 words per minute, whereas a writer with a pen was limited to a maximum of 30 words per minute, the 1853 speed record. From 1829 to 1870, many printing or typing machines were patented by inventors in Europe and America, but none went into commercial production. There are some mechanical typewriter invented in past. Hanson Writing Ball, 1870, the first typewriter manufactured commercially. Charles Turber developed multiple patents, of which his first in 1843 was developed as an aid to the blind, such as the 1845 chirographer. In 1855, the Italian Giuseppe Ravizza created a prototype typewriter called Cembalo Scrivano, a machine da scrivere a tasti. Scribe harpsichord, or machine for writing with keys. It was an advanced machine that let the user see the writing as it was typed. In 1861, Father Francisco João de Azevedo, a Brazilian priest, made his own typewriter with basic materials and tools, such as wood and knives. In that same year, the Brazilian Emperor D. Pedro II presented a gold medal to Father Azevedo for his invention. Many Brazilian people, as well as the Brazilian federal government, recognize Father Azevedo as the real inventor of the typewriter, a claim that has been the subject of some controversy. In 1865, John Pratt of Alabama built a machine called the Petirotype, which appeared in an 1867 Scientific American article and inspired other inventors. Between 1864 and 1867, Peter Mitterhofer, a carpenter from South Tyrol, developed several models and a fully functioning prototype typewriter in 1867. Early electric models of typewriter. First electric typewriter was produced by Blickensderfer Manufacturing Company of Stamford, Connecticut in 1902. Like the manual Blickensderfer typewriters, it used a cylindrical type wheel rather than individual type bars. It was not a commercial success, which may have been because at that time electricity had not been standardized and current differed from city to city. The next step in the development of electric typewriter came in 1909, when Charles and Howard Crumb filed a patent for the first practical typewriter. The Crumb's machine also used a type wheel rather than individual type bars. While innovative, neither of these machines reached business or personal consumers. In 1928, Delco, a division of General Motors, purchased Northeast Electric, and the typewriter business was spun off as the Electric Typewriters Incorporation. In 1933, Electrometric was acquired by IBM, which then spent $1 million on a redesign of the Electrometric typewriter, launching the IBM Electric Typewriter Model 01 in 1935. By 1958, IBM was deriving 8% of its revenue from the sale of electric typewriters. Electric typewriter designs removed the direct mechanical connection between the keys and the element that struck the paper. Not to be confused with the later electronic typewriters, electric typewriters contained only a single electrical component, the motor, where the keystroke had previously moved a type bar directly. Now, it engaged mechanical linkages that directed mechanical power from the motor into the type bar. In 1941, IBM announced the Electrometric Model 04 electric typewriter, featuring the revolutionary concept of proportional spacing. By assigning varied rather than uniform spacing to different sized character, the Type 4 recreated the appearance of a printed page, an effect that was further enhanced by a typewriter ribbon innovation that produced clearer, sharper words on the page. The proportional spacing feature became a staple of the IBM Executive Series typewriters. The next topic is Lino, which is another type composition. Lino composition. The linotype was invented in 1890 by Ottmar Mergenthaler. Large number of matrices were stored in the magazine, released by a keyboard and assembled into words. The most frequent permutations of characters could be set by pressing 2 or more keys simultaneously. These machines were used on the Morning Post until replaced by linotypes in 1910. These words were separated by double wedge spaces used for justification. The line of matrices were brought in front of the mold, justified by means of the space bands, and cast into a slug. The matrices have teeth cut into a V-shaped groove on their upper part. They were lifted by these teeth to the distributor bar, which had grooves to correspond with the teeth on the matrices. The grooves on the distributor bar were designed so that when the matrix was above the correct channel in the magazine, there were no grooves to correspond with the teeth of the matrix. So it fell into the correct channel. The idea of circulating matrix was Mergenthaler's, but the following is a list of ideas that he borrowed. 1. The keyboard from Hattersley, composing machine. Number 2. The magazine from the Thorn composing machine. Number 3. The guide plate and curving channels from the Young and Delcamber machine. Number 4. The system of grooves and teeth from the Thorn composing machine. Number 5. The double wedge space band was invented in 1879 by J.W. Shuckers. The Page compositor of 1894 was developed at a cost of several $1 million by J.W. Page of New York. It was a coal type composing machine, but very versatile. It produced justified lines, thus eliminating the need for a second compositor. Type produced could be set solid or leaded. Distribution could take place at the same time as composing. It was never a big success. It had been superseded by the Lino type. In 1912, the International Typesetting Machine Company of New York produced the Intertype, a slug casting machine very similar to the Lino type. Coming nearer to the present day, it was realized that faster speed could be achieved by Lino types and Intertypes by deploying TTS tape control. The following new models were introduced. Model 79, Lino type, works at 12 lines per minute. The machine has only 2 magazines inclined at a steeper angle to obtain a better flow of matrices. Electron, Lino type, can maintain a speed of 15 lines per minute. This machine abolishes the assembler elevator to increase speed. LinaSec, Lino type, it is claimed that this machine can operate at 60 lines per minute. The machine has its own logic unit for computing line endings, etc. The Linotype typesetting machine is a line casting machine used in printing. The name of the machine comes from the fact that it produces an entire line of metal type at once. Hence, line O type, a significant improvement over manual typesetting. The Linotype machine operator enters text on a 90-character keyboard. The machine assembles matrices, which are molds for the letter forms in a line. The assembled line is then cast as a single piece called a slug of type in a process known as hot metal typesetting. The matrices are then returned to the type magazine from which they came. This allows much faster typesetting and composition than original hand composition, in which operators place down one precast metal letter, punctuation mark or space at a time. The machine revolutionized typesetting and with it especially newspaper publishing, making it possible for a relatively small number of operators to set type for many pages on a daily basis. Before Mercantailer's invention of the Linotype in 1884, no newspaper in the world had more than 8 pages. A composing machine for setting type for newspapers, books and magazines and casting it in solid metal lines, that is slugs, with a raised printing surface. The first Linotypes in the USSR were built in 1932 at the Leningrad printing machine plant. Soviet Linotypes are operating in 60 countries since 1972. The Linotype consists of 3 main units: the assembler, the caster, and the distribution device. When a key on the keyboard is depressed, metal matrices with recessed images of individual characters drop from the magazines. Expandable space bands are set between the words. A line of text is formed from the matrices and bands and then sent to the caster. All subsequent operations in the machines are done automatically. The hot type metal fills all the recessed images of the characters on the matrices and upon cooling forms a solid line with a raised printing surface. The cooled line is ejected from the mold, given fine trimming for height of type and point, and placed on a receiving table. After the line of character is cast, the matrices are transferred to the distribution divide and the space bands goes to the space box. The distribution device returns the matrices to the magazine channels from which they were drawn during composition. Because of the circulation of matrices and space bands, when the Linotype operator finishes composing one line, he may go on to the next. Linotypes differ in the number of magazines and dismantling, that is, distribution mechanisms. In modern Linotypes, the number of magazines ranges from 1 to 8. The number of channels in each can be up to 91, and there can be 1 to 4 distribution devices. In addition to semi-automatic Linotypes, automatic Linotypes with programmed control are becoming common. Each character is coded by a certain combination of holes in a tape. The program is prepared on special devices. Since the productivity of a programmer is higher than that of a linotype operator, and the speed of the operation of the automatic machine is greater than that of the semi-automatic machine, the labor productivity achieved with automatic typesetting is significantly higher. Some great type designers invented the precious typeface. Like Claude Garamond from France was the first one that developed the first true printing typeface not designed to imitate handwriting, but designed on rigid geometric principles. Garamond also began the tradition of naming the typeface after himself. Garamond became the dominant typeface for the next 200 years. In 1557, Robert Grandjean invented the first cursive typeface, which was built to stimulate handwriting. In 1734, William Caslon issued the typeface bearing his name, which included straighter serifs and greater contrast between major and minor strokes. In 1757, John Baskerville introduced the first transitional Roman, which increased contrast between thick and thin strokes, had a nearly vertical stress in the counters and very sharp serifs. In 1780, Firmin Didot and Giambattista Bodoni of Italy developed the first modern Romans. The moderns carry the transitional to the extreme. Thin strokes are hairlines, plus a full vertical stress. In 1815, Vincent Figgins designed a face with square serifs for the first time, and this became known as the Egyptians, or more recently as the slab serifs. In 1816, William Caslon IV produced the first typeface without serifs, that is sans serifs, of any kind, but it was ridiculed at that time. In the 1920s, Frederick Gaudi developed several innovative designs and became the world's first full-time type designer. We owe the Broadway typeface to him. In 1954, Max Meidinger, a Swiss artist, created the most popular typeface of our time, Helvetica. The Swiss also championed the use of white space as a design element. Recap. In this episode, we discussed about the type and its compositions. We discussed about the history of typography and its compositions. Also, we discussed about the different type compositions like manual, mechanical, and Lino. Manual type composition is the art of hand creation of type. Mechanical, which we use to do the mechanics like typewriters. And at last, we discussed about the Lino type compositions. In our next episode of type composition, we will be discussing about some more type compositions. We will learn about mono, Ludlow, and photo DTP type compositions. Good luck and take care.